Already.
Okay, we're live. Welcome today to my guest. I won't use your name, but you work for a hospital, and I can say the state, can't I?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I should have agreed on a code name. Do you want a code name?
I think my name is Broadcast, isn't it? Up there?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay.
Would you like to change that? I can turn it off and go back again.
No, that's fine.
That's fine. Okay, good. Okay, yeah, because we do rely on doctors and nurses at the moment, not only to save lives, but I know I'm looking to doctors and nurses as the canaries in the coal mine of this crisis. Because if people take their cues as to the severity of the pandemic from the president, they're not going to be on the ball with compliance, with physical distancing measures. They're not going to stay home necessarily. They're not going to take it seriously. So I'm talking to Brian today so we can have some on-the-ground information from someone in the hospital system, someone working at the coalface of this crisis. So, Brian, tell us about what you're hearing from colleagues on social media and what you're seeing yourself in relation to reuse of medical supplies and that type of thing.
Well, I mean, what I've experienced at the hospital that I work at specifically is that they are trying to severely limit the number of supplies that we're using. To try and
conserve resources,
stock.
Stretch
the stock as far as they possibly can, because they don't know when we're going to get an influx of stock to replenish what we have. Yep. So we're doing things like putting disposable N95 masks in paper bags in order to reuse them for an entire shift. And now they're talking even about, okay, well, you might have to save yours for the next shift and the next shift and the next shift now. That's how low the supply is on these things. And they're literally giving, if you take care of a COVID patient or a suspected COVID patient, and they're getting aerosolized treatments, they're on positive pressure ventilation, such as a BiPAP machine, which is not the same thing as a ventilator. A ventilator is a closed circuit system. All of the air within the system stays within the tubing and within the body. In the positive pressure systems like BiPAPs and Optiflows or what's commonly known as heated high flow, it's just pushing massive amounts of air at the person. And that aerosolizes more the
viral particles.
Virus particles. So you're aerosolizing more, and then different treatments that they're giving, nebulizing treatments and things like that, that aerosolizes as well.
So when we say aerosolizes, just for the people who don't know what that means, it means putting droplets that come out of the body of an infected person into such fine form that it's no longer a droplet, it's aerosolized. It's become as fine as the aerosol mist out of your deodorant spray. So making it distribute in the air so light that it can just hang in the air. You don't have to touch anything to get potentially contaminated. You can just breathe the air around a patient if the viral particles emanating from that patient are being aerosolized by these nebulizer measures type thing. Interesting.
Exactly. So some of the measures that we have taken are coordinating with the respiratory therapists if they're getting these treatments, that we coordinate all of our care and the things that we need to do for the patient so that we stay out of the room for an hour afterwards. Because these patients that are getting these treatments, we're trying as much as we can to put them into negative pressure rooms. Those negative pressure rooms suck all of the air out of the room, but it takes time. So we're saying, okay, 1 hour, we stay out of the room after these treatments, and then I don't want to say it's safe to go in, but safer.
Yes. Reduced risk. Risk.
The risk is they're trying to reduce the risk. I mean, I think that the hospital system I work for, and I can't say this for everyone here in the state, but I think they're trying to do the best with what they have. Yep. The CDC guidelines are changing daily. We're getting updates from our chief medical officer of the entire hospital system, 2, sometimes 3 times a day. He's sending out another email to the entire system, along with other emails that he's sending out to upper management and to mid-level management that affects exactly what we're doing as well.
Continue talking, because I'm just going to pull something up to confirm what you're saying, which was a post from someone, hang on, who's been told to not speak about it publicly, but also told that the hospital's close to running out of disinfectant. And that was in an Alabama hospital. So I'll bring that up just to leave that on the screen as well for additional confirmation as we speak.
Yeah, I haven't heard about disinfectant running out. I know that, like, one of the problems we run into is we have a very limited number of negative pressure rooms. Yep. Most hospitals are built that way. Your negative pressure rooms are meant for your airborne type infections.
Your aerosol spreading infections like measles as well, perhaps? Actually, you don't probably have to deal with a lot of measles.
I don't know for me. I have never seen a measles case. I can honestly tell you that. But I mean, we'll probably start seeing more of them now that there are more anti-vaxxers out there.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
So you just so that there's a limited number of these negative pressure rooms where the air is taken out and then released outside and fresh air brought into the room.
Yeah.
So that no viral particles that are present in a very light form in the air that can just be inhaled by anybody going into the room, that the room is made more safe for uninfected people like hospital staff.
Exactly.
How are you feeling personally in terms of for your own safety as you get updates, as standards perhaps relax a little bit, as more and more supplies become reusable supplies that were previously one-use supplies?
It's kind of scary because there are things that are being done, and I know it's being done at other hospital systems as well, as where, okay, these other disease processes or these other infections, or may have used personal protective equipment, they're saying, well, don't use it there anymore. That's fine. We're going to save it for all the COVID stuff. We're not going to use it for these other type infections. I don't want to really get into that because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus or.
Yes, but it's things that we should be looking for if we are related to medical professionals or know of them, that they are probably suffering from a degree of emotional upheaval at the moment, or just unease, even as standards that were previously maintained relaxed in order to help cope with the pressing needs of coronavirus patients, which are flooding hospital systems across America, some states earlier than others. So I think probably the states where you have more travel or more international travelers are the most obviously hard hit states first, but then also states which have larger gatherings or have recently had large gatherings, like Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah.
I've got to get my pronunciation right. Can you say it again for me?
New Orleans.
New Orleans. And what's Louisiana had? Because I know Louisiana is having a bit of an outbreak. At the moment.
Louisiana, that's where New Orleans is.
Oh, New Orleans is in Louisiana. Okay. Yeah. I'm learning.
But like
so funny.
Florida is a vacation spot. That's where all of the spring breakers have come down to. One of our local universities had 9 people come back off of spring break and all tested positive for COVID.
Wow.
I'm
pleased to hear that they could be tested.
Yeah, the school I know itself has not canceled classes. They're still doing online. They've canceled all in-person classes, but they haven't closed down their dorms. Those students are still there. They're still mingling together. They're still
spreading COVID amongst themselves.
Yeah. They're still there doing what they normally would do on any given day, other than going to class. It's scary. It's scary. It really is.
I guess Florida is a state that has a Republican governor, and a lot of Republican states are issuing safety measures to not upset Donald Trump, that are limited by their wish to not challenge the reality of Donald Trump.
And I've realized that, like, Cuomo is taking action in New York to do things, and he's not getting the supplies he needs. Somebody said on Facebook, I saw today, there's a post that said, well, Trump said he has sent ventilators to New York. If Trump says something, I don't trust anything he says, honestly. He's been lying to us for
Oh,
50 years.
I think he sent some very limited amount. I think he sent 400 or something when they'd asked for 30,000.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, and even if it was 4,000, he sent 4,000 and they'd asked for 30,000. It's not adequate.
It's a drop in the bucket compared to what they need.
And people might say, well, they don't instantly need that. And it's called anticipatory calculations or maths that help people look at
exactly.
exponential charts and say, okay, with the rate of increase of this disease per day, then yes, 30,000 ventilators is what we may need at our peak. And that might not even be Andrew Cuomo's calculations of what they need at peak. That might just be what they might need next week. I'm not even sure. I should listen to Andrew Cuomo's press conferences, because people say that they feel reassured watching them, that at least they're not being lied to, and that at least somebody's taking action to not pretend the problem doesn't exist. And that's the thing about having Trump in charge, is that he will not acknowledge problems unless he believes it's politically convenient for him, or he's thought of an angle yet to try and galvanize his base. So he mentions the virus every day now because he can get a free broadcast out of it, and he knows that's helping him with profile awareness, and is overseeing a rally in presidential approval. But some people are saying, look, in terms of analysis, that is not people changing their intention to vote for Trump. That's like a hopeful, sympathetic to people suffering from a crisis. That's saying, yes, we approve of the president because we want the president to do the right thing. And we're hoping that by expressing approval of him, that will motivate him to be a president that the country needs.
I mean, even I want the president to do the right thing, but I don't think he's going to. That's the problem. I don't trust him. I haven't trusted him. I haven't liked him. My disdain for him did not start when he went on to try and become president. I have not liked him for many, many, many years, for many other reasons as well. But he is politicizing this entire thing. He is going to give, I mean, Florida, we have a Republican governor. He's going to give more supplies to us than he'll give to New York. And that will keep his base here happy. It's going to upset the base in New York of Democrats. But I see him doing that for political gain more than anything, because that's what it is for him.
Yes. I'm trying to start a campaign amongst myself and anybody who listens to me now to rehabilitate the word political, because as I listen to it, I think a lot of what Russians have tried to do and a lot of what Trump and Republicans have tried to do is diminish public faith in institutions. So when we make the word politics a word associated with malicious outcomes or negligent outcomes, that's bad. So I'm going to try and rehabilitate the word political and contaminate the word partisan. In exchange. So I'm going to try and say, or electoral, that for electoral advantage and for partisan gain, he's doing these things. Because political, I want to mean, again, work done by governments for the good of people. So that even when people have different ideas about how to go about that you can still achieve things through politics, and we can still believe that things can be achieved through politics, that politics should just mean good faith discussion and rigorous debate about how to best get things done for the good of the public, and not have political mean how many millions of people do you throw under the bus to try and literally suppress the vote by killing various voters. I don't want politics to mean that. I want to rehabilitate the image of politics, because good politics, and I'm not saying good Democrats, I'm just saying good politics or a functional political system has people in good faith trying to ascertain the best way forward for the people. So yes, that's my soapbox for the moment, but I'm completely in awe of you for having seen through Donald Trump even before a lot of people got on board with that. Well, not in awe, just good for you for being on the ball about that. I didn't have antipathy towards Donald Trump particularly until I heard him talk, or I didn't so much hear him talk as see transcripts of his speeches, to see people writing about what he'd said about Mexican people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Yeah, somebody said hello to me, and I will say hello back half an hour, no, 12 minutes later, if you're still there, Simon. And I'm also going to ask my children to play quietly. Guys, be nice. All right. Lots of homeschooling, but also playtime, and lots of my actually, no, I won't talk about my children at the moment. But yes, while I'm talking to Brian, what did he say or do? How did you know? What was your inkling that Trump was somebody who was not worthy of approval, even before he ran for president?
His history speaks for itself. I mean, if you look back and just comb through his divorces from his first two wives,
Yes.
the level of vindictiveness and maliciousness he had back then, years ago, and it's never stopped. And he's always been predatory. He's never paid his contractors. He's defaulted on multiple loans. He has. I mean, you're very well. You know the whole story about the casino that he tried to build in Australia,
Yeah.
and they said no. You have mob ties.
Yes.
And it's known. It's not like any of this stuff is secret. It's known. It's just that
The level of awareness
he became a celebrity on a TV show, and that's what most people here know him for. They don't know who Donald Trump really is. They say, "Oh, look, he's a successful guy. He's on a TV show. It's got great ratings, and it's entertaining to watch."
Yeah. Yes, the reality was crowded out with noise. So some people like you might have known, but people like you weren't interviewed. They interviewed people in diners because they wanted more of the flavor of Middle America. And that is interesting. And to a degree, it's important, but not just undilutedly, what do you believe? Oh, that's clearly true because enough people believe it. Their reality doesn't become reality by virtue of them endorsing it, but their reality was probably built out of emotional need, and that emotional need was in part created by conservative media such as Fox News and right-wing radio, a need to dismiss the achievements, the economic achievements of a Black Democratic president, and an emotional need to dismiss educated people who said climate change was a problem, because the lure of comfort and getting to look ahead to the future without fear was very strong for a lot of people, and right-wing media took advantage of that to bring more people into their fold, to say, believe us, and then you don't have to stress about what happens down the track. You don't have to worry about rising sea levels or crop failure or anything. Join us and be oblivious.
Yeah.
So it's so funny because a lot of the right-wing young men who go take the blue pill or whatever pill they recommend are people who've joined the side that was created around satiating an emotional need for cowardice, for hearing reassuring lies. So yes, people who believed in Donald Trump, who overlooked the cruelty that he exhibited towards Ivana Trump. There was that reported story from their divorce papers, which she later qualified but didn't deny. But she had said that, or she told a reporter that, have you heard that story, that she recommended her surgeon to him? She had a plastic surgeon, and that surgeon then performed scalp surgery on Donald Trump to reduce, I guess, the amount of balding scalp. And he didn't like it, and he came home and yelled at her and said, "You've ruined me," and ripped out handfuls of her hair and raped her.
Yes, I have heard that story before.
That story. And that she went upstairs, and later on she came down and there were still handfuls of her hair strewn on the bed. And Trump looked at her quizzically and said, "Does it still hurt, or does it hurt or something?" So yes, that pathological level of callousness, raping people and just blaming people ridiculously. So blaming Ivana for the his discomfort with the surgeon's work. Yes. So
and I've spoken to some of my coworkers, Trump coworkers,
your Trump supporting coworkers.
My Trump supporting coworkers, and I literally, I had a pretty long conversation the other day about like our COVID response, the whole thing with Italy, what's going on there, what's going on worldwide. And I said, you do realize that Italy is suffering as much as they are, and they are the number 2 healthcare system
in the
yes. world.
Yes.
And they're like, really? And I'm like, yes. And I explained that to them. I said, WHO says that they are number 2 in efficiency on the entire planet right now. I said, we rank 37th. I said, how do you think we're going to fare? I said, and if you look at the top ranking hospital systems by country, the majority of them, almost all of them, are not private insurance like what we have. They are some form of universal health care. I said, and we fight so much with the insurance companies here just to get a test done, just to have a routine CT done. If the insurance company says, oh, we don't think you need that, you have to fight them about that. And that's
adding
just
to the
more money being spent.
Yes.
It's more money. They're paying somebody to fight you to get a test.
Yes.
And it's been that way here for years, and people don't see that as a problem.
Yes, it's amazing how much Americans have accepted fighting for healthcare as part of the natural pathway to getting healthcare. So it's inefficiencies built into your systems that you have to, you have a problem, and then you have to wade through additional unnecessary added layers of middlemen and middlewomen and bureaucratic strangulation, delaying your healthcare, but also to just argue that you even are sick in the first place and that you need healthcare. And they're like, yep, you don't appreciate anything unless you have to fight for it. I'm presuming that's what the mentality is, of just everybody accepting so much fight.
Yeah. And when somebody's legitimately sick, their fighting is the last thing you want. They want.
You wanted it.
Yeah. You want to get an answer, and you want to get medicine, and you want to get treatment, and you want to get better. And that's what our insurance companies prevent happening a lot of times, unfortunately.
They delay treatment, they complicate treatment, and people accept it in the hope that that's part of American exceptionalism, that this is just the hoops you have to jump through to get excellent care for some people. Maybe they accept that not everybody gets excellent care. They underestimate how many millions of people are not getting even adequate care because of this system of privatizing your delivery of medical care. But yes, but I think it possibly, it's so socially Darwinistic. It's so, survival of the fittest. If you're so sick you can't fight for your health care, then you should die. It's so Sparta. It's so weird.
Yeah,
and
it is.
And I guess, is it a product of American exceptionalism that just stuff happens and then people go, well, whatever it is the way it is, and that means it's the best because America is the best. And that logical shortcut of just accepting how things are.
I think so many people here are so egocentric. So many people think that the American way is the only way, it's the right way, it's the best way, when that's not 100% true. And studies have shown that. I mean, we rank miserably in like infant mortality rates.
Yeah, and maternal mortality rates. You're the only developed country. Maternal mortality is going up instead of down, as it is in other countries. You've got the reverse direction.
Yes.
Is it individualism? Is it, we're just speculating here. We're just spitballing. Is it exceptionalism, and Americans won't let go of exceptionalism because they see it as a positivity, that cult of positivity? Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, he wrote a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. I read that book as a child. My father had it. Donald Trump apparently had Dr. Norman Vincent Peale officiate at one of his weddings. So maybe it's that, something that sounded so nice, like, oh yes, consider other people. And when you're trying to sell something to someone, don't just talk about what you need, think about how it will fulfill their needs and talk to them about that first. I loved that book as a teenager, but it perhaps helped people think that whatever, even if American exceptionalism isn't accurate, it's still a tool in our toolbox of being positive about ourselves and therefore helping us succeed more. And to a degree, that's right, because positivity and confidence can carry you a long way. And now we're running smack up against the limitations of it, which is if you're so delusional because you think positivity benefits, that you're so delusional that you, A, are too positive about a white guy in power who shouldn't be there, and you don't notice how badly he treats everybody and the implications for that eventually as to how he'll treat you. And what else? Positivity about your own country instead of devotion to best practice. So other countries that aren't as attached to that idea of America is the best at everything can look around the world and go, what's working? Can we adopt that here? You can have politicians with more humility and therefore a greater capacity to learn and grow.
And I think that's what has helped to accelerate universal health care systems across the world is they look to each other. They say, okay, what's working here? What can we change to be more like them? Because their numbers are better. Their metrics are better. Their outcomes are better. What are they doing differently? The U.S. doesn't do that. We don't look to other people. We everything is internalized within the country. Everything is studies within the United States, and they don't look out to too many outside sources.
People keep talking about state rankings. Oh, we're this in number. Yeah. And when you're criticizing somebody,
50 little countries fighting each other.
Yes. Yeah. It's gone very Hunger Games in America. And I guess I'm going to say now, back to Norman Vincent Peale. You've had decades of that indoctrination of just being positive about something makes it happen. My mum used to tell me as well, act it, then be it. It's some catchphrase. Act like it is the case to help it be the case. So there was this degree of acceptance that you needed to pretend. Oh, fake it till you make it was one, but there was something else. Fake it till you make it. But I think the phrase I'm thinking of doesn't even acknowledge that anything's being faked. It's just like pretend. Oh, well, whatever. To me, it speaks to the level of acceptance in America of Donald Trump's lies, that he can lie and they'll go, oh, well, it's for a good end, that he is trying to help America be its best by telling us that we're the best. And it's not as if I want to say that support for Trump is a majority position. No, I think there's a lot of opposition to Trump, regardless of the temporary rally in his approval rating. That's just a crisis response rally of America's in crisis. Yes, leader, do the right thing, please. We're behind you. We've got your back. Please do the right thing. And as word begins to trickle out that he's really not, that those hospital ships he talked about are still in maintenance, that the cure he promoted was a crackpot in France. What's his name? Ray. I don't know how to pronounce it. I should try and.
I can't pronounce his name either. Yeah.
Raoult, Didier Raoult, who said, "Oh, yep, I've got this trial with 20 patients. Some of them have dropped out. There were a lot of problems with the study, but that's already a dude who's into climate denialism." And yelling at PhD students. So I've seen a bit of an expose, but his business partner
falsifying his own reports.
Oh yeah, falsifying his own reports. You read it, and then was it just circulating the internet, or did you read it? Because I posted it. I'm curious as to
you had posted it. I had seen it.
Oh, you'd already seen it. That's good. I'm glad for this to be getting penetration even outside of my circle of influence, which is not that big.
somebody else I follow had posted it as well. I don't remember who it was. And I saw you posted it too, and I retweeted it. I think I retweeted both of you.
Yeah, well, it's important to know because we don't need complacence. We need compliance, basically. Complacency to say, oh, there's this cure. How long will it take for them to twig? I think Trump supporters will go, oh, well, Trump's being shackled by bureaucracy, and that's why the cure isn't on all of our shelves yet, because it's not actually showing good results in randomized controlled trials, which again underlines the need for science and the value of science, that we don't just take hopeful thinking and believe that that helps bring us to the outcomes we want. The power of positive thinking, that's got to be discarded, that we've got to do some self-reflection and go, how has that shaped our thinking? Because it doesn't work. And the myth of American exceptionalism is likely to die along with hundreds of thousands of Americans during this pandemic. But we've got to cushion its death just to help people process and reframe the world in a functional way, so they don't just despair and go, oh, my worldview has no value. We've got to tweak your worldview, chaps, so that we don't just say America's so wonderful, we should only ever do internal studies and compare ourselves to other states. America's got to get a bit more outward looking and look at best practice around the world. And then that would help it. That would help it avoid.
Going back to the person I was speaking to at work about the whole Italy versus United States and all that stuff, I've asked this person probably at least half a dozen times. So what is it that you like about Trump? And they never have an answer. They've never answered that question to me. And I think a lot of people don't really know what it is they like about Trump. I don't see her as a racist person. So I just now I outed her sex, but
that's okay. I was
trying not to.
Actually,
yeah, but I don't see this person as racist.
We can speculate about it. It's good for us, a good mental exercise to go, let's not just dismiss people as racist. I think there's a degree of passive, pervasive racism that helped media outlets, that motivated certain media outlets to discount Obama's achievements. So people don't know that's racist because it's racism compounded by partisanship that makes you go, oh yeah, the economy was terrible under Obama and it only turned good under Trump. That type of inability to engage with reality, that the economy was improving under Obama and that the upward trajectory that the economy was on until recently commenced during Obama's tenure. So it's not, it's racism that's been filtered through enough things that it's not going to be conscious or even unconscious racism. It's a hybrid of partisan racism, and then also people being mesmerized by the alphaness of Donald Trump, because he doesn't do anything to actually benefit the public. Like all fascist leaders, he plays for optics. So he knows what words to say to people who already gave him the benefit of the doubt. So if you went, oh yeah, black Democrat president was bad, that Democrats don't believe in the economy or looking after the economy, only Republican presidents do. Republicans are pro-business and Democrats are anti-business. If you have that false stereotype in your head already, and to a degree, there's some evidence to support you in that Democrats talk less about the economy than Republicans. So it's not always obvious that Democrats are far better economic managers than Republicans. So if you have a predisposition to think well of Republicans and a predisposition to think well of men, and you look to male figures in your life and go, yeah, what a great job they're doing, that's not an evil tendency in itself. But if you have all of these compounding factors and then a charlatan who's like, I know what you like manly men. Well, look at me. I'm playful. Anything you were tired of, that you thought democracy was too cumbersome, that you couldn't get the results you wanted, you were tired of hearing about people negotiate, you wanted things to be done more efficiently, for somebody to say, I'm doing things efficiently, I'm cutting through red tape. If you had all those buttons available for pressing, then yes, Trump's been pressing your emotional buttons for a long time, because he plays those people like they're strings on a violin with everything he says. That, yep, I cut through red tape, I break the mold, I'm different. He's just refreshing to them because all of their negative associations are to do with government and feminism. And well, I guess your female colleague is working in a science-related profession, but people can sometimes be impatient with science as well. So Trump pressed people's emotional buttons for reassurance, for a continuation of what they thought upheld society. White men, if they think white men weren't getting enough recognition, and a lot of people do feel like that, they have an emotional backlash against the implications of feminism in general, and some feminists more specifically, that they think we're taking away privilege and status from men. And I can understand that, because we are. Feminists have contributed to the stripping of some status and respect and privilege from men. Like, and my example of that at the moment is just Amber Heard, that we gave her the benefit of the doubt. That's actually a very valuable commodity when you start to give a group of people benefit of the doubt. And I know that for too many years, women were given less than the benefit of the doubt, and that was detrimental to women. And we'll still do it because it's just a thought pattern of people dismissing women's claims. But for Amber Heard, nope, we said, yep, Johnny Depp was abusive, and now there's a lot more evidence to suggest she concocted abuse claims and that she actually physically abused him for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So at least that helps me understand your female colleague a little bit, that I can guess without knowing her that that I don't have to say she's racist, that I can say maybe she had a longing or an affinity for a world in which we respect men and we don't just go, oh, white men poo-poo, where we cut through red tape, where we say, yeah, America's strong. And she's probably read The Power of Positive Thinking or been influenced by that to go, here's someone who's prepared to say America is wonderful. I won't hear anybody say America's terrible. She'll be somebody with a core belief that you need to be positive about something in order for it to succeed. And you sound like you've managed to at least have more of that inherent approach of saying, hey, no, you don't just have to undilutedly be positive about something to propel it forward with the positive emotional energy. You can think critically of it and go, what are other people doing better, and adjust.
One of the things that prior to me being a nurse, I don't know if I've ever told you this or not. I've only been a nurse for a little over 4 years.
Electrician?
Yeah, as an electrician.
Yes.
One thing about being an electrician, you realize and you learn really quickly as you advance through your trade, is that there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to say.
Yes.
So you learn different ways to do stuff. So I mean, I realize that there's not just one right and wrong. There's not just one way to do healthcare. There's not one way to do politics or partisan or anything like that. It takes everybody working together, and there are different ways to do everything. That's why different healthcare systems work better than ours. That's why different economies thrive under different conditions than ours. It's just because there's not one case that fits all. There's not one case that fits every American. There's not one case that fits every Australian or European or anything. There's many ways to do things, and I've seen that for years.
So we're learning now the value of people with a degree of humility, whether they encountered that through their profession or whether it's just some personal characteristic they grew up with, nature or nurture, whatever combination. People with humility, the humility to recognize that a variety of approaches is good. Do you want to sit on my lap, Bubba? But don't poke me anymore, okay? The variety of approaches is good and necessary, and that we don't have to resort to false positivity to advance or to be safe. So people who support Donald Trump, he makes them feel safe. Oh, she's mocking me. Can you see a little hand in the corner of the picture?
Yes.
I get this. That's when she wants me to wind up because she thinks I've spent too long talking. Hello, Pumpkin. Why don't you do something? Could you see if your teacher's left you a new activity to do? She didn't? I don't think you've checked. Daddy will help you. No. Not many broadcasters have to put up with people. I can do that. I'm humble enough that I can cope with being mocked at as I broadcast. So all of our energies that we put into analyzing Trump as psychologically frail, I sometimes think is a waste of time, because he answers those criticisms by saying, yeah, whatever, I'll just withhold supplies from people who criticize me.
Yeah.
And we're like, yes, that is kind of what we meant. It's not strong of you to go, yes, I will deal punitively with governors who have been insufficient in their praise of me and my efforts. But at the same time, his followers are really high on that power dynamic of watching the person they've endorsed, and they've put their emotional eggs in that basket of, that's the version of reality we're going with. That's the approach that we think will work out the best for America. Watching him defeat his foes and go, yep, I'm going to withhold supplies from Michigan and Washington.
That's the other state I was going to mention was Michigan, because he got into an altercation with their governor.
Yeah.
And it's needless, because it's not about the governor and if they get along with the president or anything like that. It's the lives of the people in the hospitals and the protection of the healthcare workers taking care of those people.
Yes.
It's about getting them the supplies they need to safely do their job and be able to go home to their families at the end of the day, and not take the virus home with them to their children and possibly an elderly parent that might live with them or something like that.
You won't get one if you don't go with your brother. Go that way around. Yes, and that's a very good point that you've raised. I wanted to talk about it more because it relates to people in detention, various types of detention as well, because when you don't release prisoners during a pandemic, you're creating infective pockets that don't just mean people in prison are going to suffer, but those non-detained people who work with them, the guards, etc., are going to be infective pockets who bring home. Wait, darling, sweetheart, keep your fingers out of the way or they'll get slammed in a door. He's opening the freezer to get one for you too, so you just have to sit tight. You just have to sit tight and your brother will bring you one as well. He's getting an ice cream. It's very small. And I'm such a modern parent that I feel like I have to justify that to the internet. But yes, my children are getting themselves ice creams right now. And I agreed to that to buy myself a couple of minutes of talking time. But
whatever
yes,
works sometimes.
Whatever works sometimes.
I have 4 kids, so.
Yeah. And it's close to afternoon tea time. So what was I saying?
My kids are in bed. It's 1:00 in the morning here. So
I know you've got nurses have very disrupted schedules of awake and sleep time, huh?
Yeah, well, because I worked all night for the past 9 nights in a row, and so I slept until 5:00 today. So I'm up for a couple more hours till I can try and maybe go to sleep early.
Okay. So. Now my listeners want ice cream as well. That's funny. You can knock on the door, darling. You can knock on the door to test if what he's doing, because he does seem to be taking a mysteriously long time. That's all right. So yes, to look out for Americans, Trump would need to adequately distribute protective gear, because not only does it endanger the lives of medical staff, not only will some of them sicken and die because of exposure, but also those doctors and nurses who get the disease and are asymptomatic or mild are infective pockets themselves at a critical edge of spreading the disease to vulnerable patients who will likely have severe instances of it, making them even more infective and spreading it even more broadly as well. And that consigns so many people to die alone as well. Anybody that gets admitted to hospital with a severe case is potentially not going to have visitors, potentially going to be intubated without even anybody that they know to hold their hand or say goodbye to them.
Every hospital I know in my general area, no visitors whatsoever in any hospital system in Central Florida.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter circumstances. The only time that they're allowing people is if it is a non-COVID patient that is actively dying.
Yeah.
And then they're still severely limiting the number of people. And they're basically having to plead their case to be there with a dying family member.
It's all my nightmares in relation to a Trump presidency of incompetence compounded by active malevolence towards not only blue states, not only blue voters, but just disregard for anybody's health. There is no concern for the people, only for the type of optics he needs to continue to lie effectively enough for his base to continue to believe him. So he just has to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks with his base, because they're so forgiving and so accommodating of his actions, because the alternative is really must be psychologically terrifying for them to accept that they did vote in and they did support someone who is as harmful as to American interests as Donald Trump in reality is harmful. So I'm not surprised that they would resist very strongly the idea of accepting what they've done to America.
And part of me, I hate to say this, but part of me thinks that Trump wanted this pandemic to get bad enough to a certain point where right now it's overshadowing the election. You hardly see anything about election news. It's all COVID news. It's all supplies in hospitals. It's all doctors getting sick. There's very little coverage of Joe Biden, of anything that Bernie's saying right now. It's kind of on the back burner at this moment.
Yes. Biden's at least making an effort, and I treat him as the presumptive nominee now because to me,
Oh yeah, me too.
Anybody that supports Bernie still has that problem, except instead of American exceptionalism, it's Bernie exceptionalism, an irrational belief in the perfection of a particular person. So yes, Biden is doing more to do live broadcasts or to appear on stations. I guess to a degree, Trump's incompetence speaks for itself. I'm just wondering at what point people's reality catches up with, or at least enough to make independent voters question the veracity of Trump's claims. So he's getting a lot of free publicity for his claims to be handling everything beautifully. Like you can turn on the television each night and see Trump give himself a confident rating of 10 out of 10.
Was it Lincoln Project that put that ad together that clipped all his things together with the dates saying, oh, we've got it under control, or there's only 5 cases, or there's only 15 cases.
A lot of them have done different versions of it. The one with the calendar that featured individual dates and a little Trump face in each one saying it, that was a group of people who called the Recount. So the Recount did the calendar.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
And Unite America did one that they wouldn't run on Fox, I think, because it had presidents all have their crises, but this one has failed. So showing footage of George Bush looking somber and Obama in the what type of room is it called? The mission room, anyway, that important room where they were when Osama bin Laden was getting assassinated.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and then they said, this president has failed. And I thought that might seem early to some, because there's still probably a lot of people that say, well, it's too early to say he's failed because we're still asking him to try to succeed. Like we haven't finished counting the dead yet. The dead are still happening now, and actions we take now ensure how many die going forwards. But how many people are going to start to object to that idea that Trump will open up America at Easter time? How many people will start to distrust that he's making the right decisions to keep Americans safe?
Well, right now I know we surpassed China in number of cases yesterday. I saw that.
Yes.
Today we surpassed. I know we're higher again, and I know that Italy has surpassed China now finally. So they're number 2 behind us. I guess if America wants to be number 1 at something, I mean, I guess. Yeah, but the other thing to look at, and I crunched some numbers the other day. If you look at the percentage of people infected, China is 0.005%. In the United States, it's 0.0005. 3 zeros and then a 5. In the United States, it's 0.002.
That's an important criteria to look at. What percentage of different countries are confirmed cases of infection?
And we're still not testing enough. So I mean that number to me is still artificially low.
Yes.
Because it's not even the fact that, because somebody was telling me, but a lot of people have mild cases, but those mild cases are passing along to people that aren't going to get mild cases. People like myself that are immunocompromised, that if I get it, I could be a bad case.
1 second, I've got somebody tugging out my earphones. I'll check what was. Yes. Frozen raspberries, bread, banana, water. Well, you can get the water, darling. You start with that. And the frozen raspberries, you're going to have to wait for a little bit. Yes, a lot of cases in New York. I'm curious to look at a table of those figures again, Brian. So if you come across it, share it with me, and I'll retweet that out, because that's important to think about, as well as just what proportion of Americans are infected relative to people in other nations. It's interesting as well, because Trump probably doesn't want any testing at all, because he's done what he could to slow and sabotage the pace of testing. But one presumes, we don't know how the CDC managed to issue a faulty test. But I saw people who were involved in pandemic modeling say that none of their models had ever included a fault at the testing level. They just hadn't expected that would be something that could happen. So it's surprising enough that I'm prepared to speculate that it could be attributed to Trump appointees sabotaging that process somehow, but that's very speculative. What were we saying before that? We were saying that a lot of Americans are infected. Oh. I lost Brian. But I think we're still live. But Brian, maybe he went off so that he could just go and get us some figures, and he'll come back again. We'll see. It was lovely talking to him in any case. But yes, Brian was saying he's immunocompromised, and that makes it more dangerous to encounter mild cases, and that a lot of the mild cases of COVID account for the bulk of transmission. Still live, but no Brian. Yes, I can see that Brian's gone. So yes, I guess all we can do still is try to help get information out there. What we should do as well is maybe try and write an emotional handbook to getting over any anger and resentment of Trump supporters, to be able to welcome them and invite them into the fold of people who question the worthiness of Trump's actions. So, I'm going to cut down on blanket statements I say against Trump. I'm going to try just specifically criticizing actions that I want him to reverse course on, because I want to invite more independents, and I want to invite more former Trump supporters who are starting to go, I don't feel safe. I'm seeing warnings from doctors and nurses. I'm seeing red light flashing signs about what will happen in my state, to my community, to my family, that may endanger my family, my community, my state, my nation. So if anybody has any ideas about how best to do that, that sounds great. Trump's message to young Americans: you are a citizen of the greatest country anywhere in the world. We are winning the battle, and we're going to win the war. How are people going to square that with reality? I guess Trump's counting on people's reluctance to compare America to other countries. But I think people in the news are probably doing that more now, going, look at Italy and look at China, and we've surpassed them in number of cases. We're going to surpass them in numbers of proportion of our citizens that are infected. We're going to surpass them in death count. So Julia is saying she's a caregiver for her mom. It scares you a lot. There's a podcast that I might like called Red State Update. What's the political position of the people who broadcast that? I'm going to have a look at Twitter, I think. Oh, we've got a ER doctor, so I'll have a little break from talking, and we'll include that on here. Share screen. Let's see if I can play that. Okay.
Here in Michigan, I'm on the way into my shift in the emergency department, and just had to take a minute for a brief message for our president. Heard that you were on Hannity tonight attacking my governor here in Michigan, my governor who has issued a shelter in place, who from the beginning has taken this entire crisis seriously. He's working overtime with her office and with hospital systems in the state to get us ventilators, to get us masks, to get us the gear that we need, to help get us tests here in Michigan. Here and everywhere else in this country, we still don't have enough tests. I'm still using one single paper mask for an entire shift because of shortages of PPE. We have hospital systems here in the Detroit area in Michigan who are getting to the end of their supply of ventilators, and they're going to have to start telling families that they can't save their loved ones because they don't have enough equipment. And I hear now that the president canceled an order for $1 billion for ventilators from GM because they were worried about having too many. President Trump, for you to blame anybody but yourself is expected. It's predictable, but it's just sad. We're out here on the front lines trying to take care of our patients, working hard with our governors in the states. And all you can worry about is when you're going to get people back to work and back to church and and all this instead of taking the leadership that you've needed to take for so long. I still have people in the state who don't believe that this is a big deal because you told them it was a Democratic hoax, because you told them it was just like the flu or like a cold or looked just like that, it would be gone. When none of that was true, when your experts knew that wasn't true, and now it's proving not to be true. This lies squarely on you. You still need to issue a national shelter in place. We still need more tests. We still need the Defense Protection Act to be fully operationalized so we can get ventilators and PPE. That is on you. Please help us on the front lines, President Trump. That's all we're asking. We need help from our national leadership.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for joining us again.
Sorry, my laptop battery is like dead because this thing is like 6 years old, and I didn't think to plug it in. I thought, oh, it'll last for an hour. It's not lasting for an hour anymore.
Well, yes,
I rarely use my laptop.
It's a big drain on the battery to live stream, I think. So we learned. But thanks for plugging your laptop in. Welcome back. While you were gone, I just spoke a little bit about how, yes, for people with depressed immune systems or immunocompromised people, they're facing greater risk, and it's important for us to let people know that a lot of the transmission of this disease is done by asymptomatic carriers. So people don't know that, but not everybody has a severe case. When we stress, look at the death rate, look at the people dying, we need to talk as well about the people with no symptoms. This is not a plague that just kills everybody it touches. This is a plague that contaminates everybody it touches with differing consequences and differing outcomes. But the main thing we need to do is break those chains of transmission and reduce physical contact, reduce physical proximity to people. So yes, that was a really interesting video that we just watched from a doctor in Michigan saying that it's not surprising that Trump is not accepting responsibility, but that it's sad. It's sad that he's attacking the governor of Michigan, who's taken the pandemic seriously, has put a shelter-in-place order in and done so much. But he said he has patients who don't take the virus seriously because they've been told directly by President Trump that it's a hoax, a Democratic hoax, that it's not something to be taken seriously, that it's equivalent to the flu. So he's fighting off not only a virus, but non-compliance that was with public safety initiatives, that non-compliance springs from pronouncements by the president, irresponsible pronouncements from the president. So, yeah. Thank you, healthcare workers, including you, Brian. Lots of different countries now are doing, instituting initiatives like going out on their balconies at 8 o'clock and just round of applause for healthcare workers. And I do think that's a good idea. It helps people take it seriously when they see broad initiatives like that, to take that moment to acknowledge the precariousness of the position of healthcare workers.
Yeah, I mean, we are not at peak yet, definitely, I don't think, anywhere near it.
No.
Especially here in Florida yet. I know New York might be nearing their peak. Hopefully they are. I mean, I pray that they are maybe. But I don't think they are either, because it's such a densely populated area. And everything that I've been reading is you are totally asymptomatic for 5 days while you're still a carrier. You don't start developing symptoms until that 5th day. By then, everybody you've come in contact with, possibly you've spread it to.
Yes.
If you've sneezed or shook somebody's hand and hadn't washed your hands or hadn't done whatever, you've possibly spread it to those people for the past 5 days as well. I mean, think about it in a normal day, if we're not in lockdown, how many people one person can come in contact with in 5 days?
Yes, I really became conscious of it once I was more aware of the coronavirus, and I started to just notice all these little interactions of people touching things that somebody else was touching, a card that people take and tap from me to buy something. So I'm very happy to be effectively in lockdown myself at home, because not just for safety for my family, but to not have any more morality pressing on my chest of who could I be unintentionally contaminating if I'm an asymptomatic carrier. And that was a burden for me, because I was considering that, and it's such a relief to have gone, yep, that's it. We're not going anywhere. For me to go schooling my children from now, and my husband was initially not on board, and I was like, that's okay. You can deride, you can think this is silly, but I reckon it'll take about 2 days for you to change your mind. Because I'm on Twitter, and everybody on Twitter has a little bit more access to breaking news than people who don't use that medium. But I was like, I bet it'll take you about 2 days to get hold of the news that I'm reading, and then you'll start going, oh yeah.
Yeah, maybe we should do this.
Yeah. Maybe you're not completely crazy.
3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago was the last time I went to the grocery store, and we stocked up pretty well with what we were able to get. No toilet paper, no paper towels, anything like that. But I mean, we're starting to run low. So, but when I was at the grocery store that day, they were already at the Publix near me. They were limiting that they had a limited number of carts in the area where the carts normally are, and they were saying once the number of carts was empty, you had to wait for somebody to leave the store.
Oh, wow.
They were already trying to implement keeping the numbers of people down inside the store then, and that was 2 weeks ago. And they had somebody out there at the carts when they brought the carts back that was sanitizing each cart individually.
That's
the
awesome.
Handles, the wiping down the inside, wiping down the little seat where the kids sit. If somebody was bringing kids in. I mean, I wasn't taking my kids shopping 2 weeks ago, but so they were 2 weeks ago. They were already implementing this stuff at stores like that. And Publix is one of the better grocery store chains here in Florida in the Southeast. So it was good to see them taking that initiative already before anybody else was doing anything.
Yes. It feels good to be able to prepare. Norma Jean's updated me on the podcast called, what was the podcast called again? Red State Update. So thank you, Norma Jean. You say, okay, phew, they're not pro-Trump, because I don't know, you might have thought it was funny. Sometimes people think weird things are funny, but I'm glad to know that nobody thinks recommending a pro-Trump podcast for me would be funny. But yes, so Red State Update, I'll check it out. Somebody else is posting that Boris Johnson has it, Prince Charles has it. I feel like Trump's probably one of those asymptomatic carriers, quite honestly. He did say out loud to a reporter that if he had a raised temperature, he wouldn't say that. They said, what's your temperature? He said, I wouldn't tell. He said, it's fine, but if it was high, I wouldn't tell. So he could very well have tested positive for it and then just gone about his daily business because he doesn't care about other people very much. I'm trying not to generalize negatively about Trump, but it's difficult.
even Boris Johnson has secluded himself.
Yeah.
I did see that. He is taking good measures. I mean, I kind of consider him the British Trump, though. Still,
he is the British Trump, and Australia has an Australian Trump.
ScoMo.
ScoMo, yes, he's got a new nickname now of Slow-Mo because he's been slow in his response. And then he takes tips from Trump as well. Like he's like, oh yeah, I can talk about this virus in a way like a teacher reproaching a class of naughty children to let people know that if this all goes pear-shaped, it's their fault. Like he's the one who hasn't been very clear or uniform in his pronouncements about what to do. And he's insisted that it's safe to go to schools for a long time, even when people were saying, shouldn't we close schools? I mean, one of the best parts of closing schools is it's a really potent signifier to adults that something's wrong and that they need to comply with lots of public safety measures. Why don't you ask your brother to set the timer for 5 minutes? And Mummy will do 5 more minutes. Yeah? 5 minutes. 1 minute. So
you have a negotiator.
I do. She's quite empowered in many ways. So what was I saying? Donald Trump. Scott Morrison, his nickname of Slow-Mo, I was wondering if that could be transferred to Trump. But then Australians embrace derogatory nicknames for their prime ministers more. You can say that without being aggravating people in a, oh, you're being partisan kind of way. Like, we can just call him Slow-Mo and you won't have conservative pundits fabricating outrage about it. Like, how dare they call the Australian prime minister Slow-Mo? Like, we have less of a pre-established outrage, manufactured outrage machine.
Yeah.
And conservatives have that emotional trajectory well plowed back and forth. They've got the established neural networks. People expect to hear occasional outrage stories. How dare the Democrats? And that's been a very limiting factor for American democracy, is that indulgence given to fake Republican outrage about things. They get away with so much outrage that's just confected. So many investigations of Benghazi. So many.
They have been doing that for years at this point, and ever since I can remember, as long as I've been alive, every time we get another Democratic president, they're sweeping up the mess that the Republican before them made.
Yes.
It happened with Clinton. It happened with Obama. It's going to happen again when Trump's out.
Yes.
It's going to be a rebuilding, and then people see, oh, everything's fine. Let's go back to a Republican. And then the cycle repeats itself.
It's so unrewarding for the people who are genuinely devoted to the public good, who aren't corporate sellouts to fossil fuel lobbyists, to be tasked with rebuilding and then not given any credit for it, and instead obstructed by Republicans who just want to make rebuilding America. It's bizarre that American politics has separated itself so much into people who are against the public good and people who are
I will tell you.
Yes.
I will tell you one of the things that scared me the most when Trump became president was the fact that he had a supermajority, and that the last time that happened was right before the Great Depression.
Yes.
What does that tell you?
Yes, it was the same.
Exactly.
That they give money to their wealthy friends, and it depresses demand because their worldview does not include the knowledge that poor people also spend money, and that when you push them over the cliff, and when you overburden the middle class with paying the taxes because you relieve any tax pressure on wealthy people because they're your Republican friends, you overburden the middle class, you overburden the lower classes, it depresses demand, and then you get economic contraction. And then you also have Republican reluctance to do stimulatory measures, and then you get further economic contraction, and then you get depressions. So yes, the supermajority, the last Republican supermajority, I think, was just before the Depression. Was that the last one?
Yeah.
That they had? But yes, and then getting too many Republicans in power under Bush also makes all of the tax cuts happen, and again overly burdens Americans, middle America, with trying to pay for the crumbling infrastructure that needs to be strengthened in order for America to flourish. So underpins economic prosperity in the US. Norma Jean's also saying that trade wars were part of the Great Depression as well. So I guess she's saying it's not a novel thing for Republicans to trade off on populism, economic populism that says, hey, pumpkins, take care of each other. I'd better go.
I can't remember who said it. Somebody said nobody has ever won a trade war.
No one ever won a trade war?
Yeah, nobody's ever won a trade war. And I can't remember. I don't know who to attribute that to, but that's very true.
It is. Yeah. You just pick fights with people. That's why we have sport. International sport is supposed to be an outlet for human aggression and competitiveness so that we don't have trade wars or real wars, because those things are unproductive and kill people and are measures of last resort. So sport's supposed to be our nice way of channeling our impulses into constructive outlets instead of destructive outlets. And we're in for a whole world of hurt and destruction now, and it's hard for people like us who foresaw it coming, and we don't want the emotional validation of being right. If we could wave a magic wand and be wrong and have competent leadership and no massive death toll from the coronavirus, we would choose that. But we have to work with reality as it exists, and as we're reporting on. not just, it's a good time to abandon concerns for what people think of you. Like, oh no, well, Republicans aren't going to think well of me and they'll think I'm crazy if I say that Trump is withholding ventilators. It's like, nope, he is withholding ventilators. People are dying. Michigan is suffering. Washington is suffering. And without a full accounting of that, we can't oppose his actions and we can't get a buildup of political momentum to call for him to do the right thing that could conceivably make him take at least some actions for the benefit of the American people.
Exactly.
Somebody's saying they need to get me a directional microphone that blocks out background noise. Yes. Oh, like one of those things. That sounds good. I can work on that, getting a directional microphone. Yeah, because that's an omnidirectional microphone, I guess. But yeah, sorry, my children are being noisy. I'm going to go look after them now. And I'm going to thank my guest. Thank you so much for appearing with me live today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And Norma Jean sang one final comment of, before you can hold Trump accountable for one lie, he's told 10 more. True. But I want to hold him accountable for his actions so that because he does respond to political pressure. When we're noisy enough, when our efforts are concentrated enough on one thing that he should be doing, awareness starts to bleed over into his base or enough into independent territory that he will reverse course on some things. So yeah, I'm just trying to find ways to get organized so that we can use our voice for good, to bring people on board, to build consensus around actions that Trump needs to take. It's like we have to do government for Trump now. We have to go, Trump, Trump. We need to invoke the Defense Production Act. Okay, everybody say it loudly enough. Okay, it's happening. And that's work that's just on us to do because of reality as it is. And save the post office. That's a very important message Enlighten Up's just made, that we have to advocate now for the post office to be saved, because without a post office, the election won't be able to happen with mail-in ballots in November. So good point. Thank you for drawing that to my attention. I'll work on it and hope to talk to you again another time, Brian. That was lovely.
Yes.
Take care. Stay safe. All the best to you and your family.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye, everybody.